the 7th meeting of this advisory board. And I'd like to give a special thanks to board member Scott Pulsifer and Western Governors University for helping coordinate and helping us host this virtual, quasi-virtual, sort of virtual meeting. So thank you, Scott, for the work that you did to make this happen today. Secretary Ross will speak in a little bit more detail about some of the economic numbers and the great American comeback that is underway as we've all experienced the hardship brought on by this pandemic. Happily, nearly half of the job losses were recovered by August. 12 million jobs were added back to the economy, and this really is just the beginning as we continue to vanquish this virus and move on to slowly turn the chapter on this particular page. To put that in context, unemployment fell by a historic 6.3%. Now at 8.4%, still higher than we want it to be and higher than it will be in the months ahead, but we're making progress, certainly in the right direction. As an indication of the effectiveness of the economic agenda of this administration, I do want to highlight one report from Census that came out just last week. It was the 2019 poverty report, which showed that poverty in the U.S. last year had reached the lowest level since 1959, which is the lowest level in recorded history. Median household income rose by 6.8%, also the largest on record. And this was true across almost every demographic, with household incomes for African Americans up 7.9%, Hispanics up 7.1%, and Asian Americans up 10.6%. The Wall Street Journal said, "These income gains weren't magical. Policy changes mattered. Employers competed for workers by increasing wages and digging deeper into applicant pools. Rising economic growth lifted all classes." And that really brings us back to why we started this board to begin with, and the genesis of, and the problem we were trying to solve for 3 years ago. The economy was really starting to boom, and for the first time last year, for 12 consecutive months plus, there were actually more job vacancies than there were Americans who were able to fill them. So last year alone, 72% of all the new jobs were secured by people fully on the sidelines of the economy coming back into the workforce. Well, clearly times have changed, but this same commitment to the long-term investment in student and workers is more relevant than ever before, and the mission of this board is more critical. So we appreciate everyone's commitment prior to COVID, and now, of course, the renewed commitment as a result of COVID. Today we have a few announcements. One of them is to welcome Robert Smith from Vista Equity Partners as the newest board member. Robert is joining us virtually. Hi, Robert. Robert.
Thank you.
Robert has been a great champion for improving access to capital in distressed communities. Our earliest conversations were improving opportunity through education, incredible supporter of the administration's actions on HBCUs. As many of you know, last year the president signed into law permanent funding for historically Black colleges and universities, and generally promoting opportunities for all Americans through opportunity zones and through other vehicles. So Robert, your voice will be a great addition to the board going forward, and we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Robert. Since the last meeting, I'll just fill you in on a couple of things that have happened from a federal level. All agencies have received guidance on implementing the EO, so that's record speed on production of guidance, on skills-based hiring by the federal government. By the end of this year, the EO will have fully gone into effect. So once again, as we did with paid family leave for the federal workforce, the United States government will lead by example and value skills and competency of the federal employees over sometimes antiquated credential or diploma requirements. So we're quite excited about that. that progress. Industry-recognized apprenticeships are well underway, and today the Department of Labor announced the first group of organizations to start approving IRAPs, expanding apprenticeships into new and emerging sectors. So it was very important for us to move the apprenticeship model into industries that really have none whatsoever. So in the tech space, in the healthcare sector, and these grants and this focus will help us do that. So we're quite excited about this IRAP program. And the Department of Education will soon announce over $125 million for short-term training, helping workers to document skills so they can easily share them with employers. So we're very excited that the first of many of these workforce discretionary grants will incorporate what everyone around this table has been working so hard on, which is the learning and employment records. And that will be incorporated into all the new grants going forward to help us build that ecosystem for LERs. Today's meeting, which is a good segue, is actually focused on these learning and employment records, otherwise known as LERs. And there are 3 pilots demonstrating the future pathways for employment to quickly match talent with employer needs and therefore reduce friction in the hiring process for everyone. This morning, the White House recognized 9 companies receiving the Pledge to America's Workers Awards, and several of the winners are joining us here today. And these companies are amongst the many who signed our pledge and were really notable in the work that they've done during this period of coronavirus. So Advisory Board member Marilyn Houston of Lockheed Martin was one of the recipients of the award. Chip Rogers from the American Hotel and Lodging Association, who joins us here today at the meeting, also a recipient today. Julie Duffy with Textron, and Matt Shea with the National Retail Federation. So we appreciate the great work of these private sector players and industry associations for advancing the President's call to action to invest in American students and workers. So I would like to, at this moment before passing it along to Secretary Ross, open up the floor for 1 minute to Julie from Textron to talk for a moment about the reskilling of the workforce of Textron, specifically during COVID and potential lessons for the board.
Well, thank you very much. And I will remove this so I can speak. We are honored to have received the award and particularly honored to have been in the company of the other recipients. It was really a true testament to private companies working with educators and the government to promote the ways of getting our workers into a new way of working and particularly into the new skills that are demanded by work today. Some of the things that we did during the COVID crisis was to, like other companies, think about how do we continue the career development and the skills development of our workers when most of our folks and our trainers were at home. So we quickly moved to using technology platforms to both engage our workers, from everything to having employees volunteer to do a storytelling hour so people could work during that time period, to actually doing our leadership development programs virtually and completely virtually. So it was really an interesting time. I was very proud of our workforce who quickly shifted to a new platform. They had the patience they needed to remember who was muted and who wasn't muted. But we found that we were able to continue to develop professionals and non-professionals in the skills with the virtual tablets. We made tablets more readily available for those on the factory floor. Most of our manufacturing workers continue to work at 100% through the crisis when everyone was home. We have brought nearly all of our office workers back to the office at this point in time so that we can support those folks on a more personal level. But in the meantime, we've been able to learn quite a bit about how to bring a broader scope of our employees together now through these virtual learning sessions, so we can have our sessions with folks in Germany and in China, with the people in the United States, and that we can use the folks in Rhode Island, can be connected to the folks in Kansas, and connected to the folks in Texas all at the same time, and learning together.
Thank you so much, Julian. Thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on being an award recipient. I'd now like to turn it over to my co-chair on this task force, the amazing Secretary Ross.
Thank you, Ivanka, and thank you for your vision in organizing the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board and for guiding our work over the past 18 months. The board's focus and action makes it truly unique among advisory councils. To our board members here in the Indian Treaty Room and on video conference, thanks for your continued civic commitment and rapid responsive engagement on behalf of American workers, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. We pray for the victims of the deadly virus and also for those on the front lines of our global battle against it. When we last spoke in May, coronavirus had begun to introduce abrupt and difficult changes to daily life. But I have optimism as we make progress through the recovery period and as our economy shows resurgence. We've seen encouraging changes in the financial markets, in real GDP projections, and in the workforce, indicating that we are holding to a standard and steady pattern of economic recovery. In June, a record 4.8 million people returned to work. Unemployment continued to rise in July and August, with 1.7 million and 1.4 million jobs added to the U.S. economy, respectively. Furthermore, the University of Michigan reported that the consumer sentiment increased in September to the highest level since March, with consumers' views of current and future conditions both improving. Confidences in personal finances and business buying conditions are on the rise, showing an increase to 78.9 in the U of M's September U.S. Consumer Sentiment Index, up from 74.1 in August. Manufacturing optimism has nearly doubled, from 33.9% of manufacturers projecting a positive outlook in the second quarter to 66% projecting it in the third quarter. Moreover, in August, NFIB showed an increase in its Small Business Optimism Index to 100.2, up 1.4 points over July's outlook and surpassing the historical 46-year average. Our economy is indeed proving its resilience, due in no small part to President Trump's success in lowering taxes, reducing regulations, and implementing fair trading practices that leveled the playing field for American industry. We've seen these policies reduce unemployment and poverty to historic lows, as Ivanka mentioned, across all demographic groups. In 2019, unemployment fell to a 50-year low of 3.5%, and unemployment for minorities and women were at their lowest in recorded history. And the poverty rate in 2019 declined for all major race and origin groups, falling to 10.5%, its lowest since estimates were first released way back in 1959. We are fortunate that these positive impacts, a direct result of the President's policies, allowed us to tackle the coronavirus fight from an initial position of strength. With that said, many of the underlying workforce challenges that you've been working on since before the pandemic's onset will remain with us after it ends. So it's important that this board continue on its mission. Today's meeting will be a little different from previous ones because we will largely focus on a single transformative topic, learning and employment records, or LERs. As you know, in Washington, we can't help but putting acronyms for everything, so LER is a new one. These digital records of learners and workers' skills, competencies, and experience can provide the technological backbone of a skills-based labor market. From very early on, this advisory board prioritized building on existing efforts to create an interoperable digital learning record that includes education attainment, non-traditional learning pathways, experience, professional affiliations, and other certifications to help job seekers attain better jobs. I'm happy that today we will see the fruits of 3 unique and collaborative pilot efforts from IBM, from Salesforce, and from Walmart. Thank you, Mark, for joining us and for your Salesforce team's effort. I'm looking forward to the presentations that you, Doug, and Ginny have prepared for us today, along with your guests, Adam Kaplan, Alex Kaplan, and Andy Trainer. Afterward, we will hear from Scott Pulsifer, and Governor Holcomb will present a new white paper on LERs that builds on lessons learned from the pilots and outlines a path forward. The technology is fascinating, but what we need now are real examples of LERs providing real value to American workers, businesses, and educational institutions. The path forward will outline how government can do much more to support LER expansion and adoption. Later, Tim Cook will update us on the Find Something New campaign, a terrific partnership with the Ad Council that helps connect workers with training and apprenticeship programs where they live. Then, Barbara Hampton, Mike Pirawa, Al Kelly, and Johnny Taylor will present 2 new focus areas for this board to take on through this year and into next year. So again, thank you, all of you, for joining today's important meeting. Our efficient discussions and truly substantive actions that have followed from those discussions are thanks to the many hours that you and your teams dedicate to supporting American workers. On their behalf, thank you. Ivanka?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And as I turn it over to Scott to lead the discussion and introduce the LERs and to moderate a series of White House pilot presentations, I want to reiterate the importance of these real examples that will enable us to develop and scale LERs and create a robust ecosystem. And this administration's commitment to fueling that through all of our grants as well. So, Scott, thank you for the work you're doing on this front, and I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Ivanka. Thank you, Secretary Ross, for that lead-in. And as you well know, government isn't the only sector that loves acronyms. It's like our human code in technology and higher ed everything else. So I think we'll hear more of that today. My role is primarily to work as traffic control as we traverse across the pilots that we'll see today. So without kind of further ado, Governor Holcomb, let me turn some time to you to let you introduce the work that's been going on within the Digital Infrastructure Working Group. So Governor Holcomb.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Advisor Trump, and to the amazing Secretary Ross and the rest of the board for your dedication to ensuring the advancement of everything that we're talking about, all the strategies that are aimed at skilling up the American workforce. Also, Scott, a special just thank you to you and especially your team. It's just been a real joy to work with you on this as we're we've all been laser focused for the last weeks and months on making sure that these specific skills and competencies that the American workforce needs to develop in both formal and informal education settings. But Scott, it's just been a true partnership, and as we have been working through all of the myriad of ways to scale both the use and the adoption of LERs. And before discussing the actual pilots themselves and the recommendations to further the efforts around LERs, I did want to take, if I could, just a moment to build off the guiding principles the Digital Infrastructure Group outlined at our last meeting, in particular around advancing broadband access for all and all the partnerships that required in the private sector. Obviously, as Ivanka alluded to, as did the Secretary, the pandemic has further highlighted the need for Americans to have equitable access to the digital infrastructure that they need to be able to connect virtually when necessary to all the education and training and employment opportunities when obviously face-to-face interactions can't occur. Most on this board, just looking at you all, obviously understood this a long, long time ago. You were leading on this front, but we now all as an American people understand the urgency of this. We have a better understanding of how we can also better operate by expanding our use of digital resources, and therefore it stands to reason our continued economic recovery. And just as a side, Indiana had an unemployment rate of 3.2% this year. We were adjusted up to 17.5, and now we're down to 6.4, and still heading in the right direction, so to speak. But that continued recovery is going to be ever more, I think, dependent upon our ability to provide technological tools for all Americans as the world of work continues to evolve itself. So we here in Indiana, Scott, we discussed this, our teams did. We here in Indiana, we're not waiting on anyone. We're working with our local communities, and we're finding ways to provide internet connectivity to all and expanding all those fields of opportunity that are there unfilled right now. Just 2 weeks ago, as an example, I announced $51 million state dollars that we dedicated to 50 broadband infrastructure expansion projects across the state, specifically in unserved areas, not underserved, but unserved areas. And in addition to that state investment, we partnered with local providers, 16 different telecommunications providers and utility co-ops, and they in turn put $53 million of their own skin in the game in matching funds. So we did over $100 million in projects all across the state of Indiana because of those partnerships, government, the private sector, and then, of course, obviously with the local communities themselves. We get it. It's working together. We're going to be able to better connect Hoosiers, in our case, with all the different ways that they live, work, and play, even during, and maybe most importantly, during this pandemic. And while the LERs can certainly help provide the American worker with a whole host of opportunities, a number of them for their specific future and maybe a new future that I think Tim will get at, it's just so important for us to continue to work toward immediate successes right now and related to all the recommendations that we're all going to hear that are outlined as part of this complete working group. So continuing to combat that digital divide, obviously very important. In fact, it could be the difference maker for many individuals out there as we recover. And that's why I'll keep continuing. Kim and I, Reynolds from Iowa, Kim and I have talked about this a lot, but we'll both continue to encourage our colleagues to be both creative and courageous at the same time in thinking about new ways to bring folks together and connect them with all the resources they need to be able to transform their lives. I also want to commend the working group since our last meeting. Now that we're nearly 1 year removed from the white paper first introducing learning records, it was time to focus our efforts on providing an update about specific strategies to make the adoption of LERs more actionable. the 6 recommendations that will be shared later will go a long way, I think, to help drive further collaboration amongst employers, education providers, and levels of government to expand upon the great work that we're seeing from the pilots. There's certainly a role that government can and must play, and similar to the executive order that President Trump signed at our last meeting, one such role is to lead by example, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think states have to be those kind of models, working with our model employers in the adoption of skills-based hiring practices, as well as encouraging thoughtful partnerships between workforce boards and employers regarding those skill-based hiring practices, just like Kim's doing in Iowa, we're doing here in Indiana. And with that, I'm excited to hear from IBM and Salesforce and Walmart about how they're going to continue to move America and therefore Americans forward. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your commitment and leadership to this effort. I think it's wonderful to see how quickly we've gone from concept to solutions that are now being proven out with these pilots. It's also great to see the state of Indiana kind of exemplifying the investments in the direct effort to advance the workforce in that great state. I think given the somewhat infrequency of our meetings, it's always great to kind of reset the context of what we're talking about with learning employment records. So the U.S. Chambers actually produced a video for this to really kind of, again, set the context, as then we'll transition to Ginny in introducing the first pilot with IBM. So if we could cue that video and share that before we go through the pilots.
Every person's and keeping track of the sum and verifiable is a constant challenge for students, workers, and job seekers. What we need is something like a digital passport, where all of our learning and skills can be brought together in one easily accessible place. That's where LERs come in. An LER, or Learning and Employment Record, is a comprehensive digital record of skills and competencies learned in school, on the job, through volunteer experiences, or in the military. It includes credentials, diplomas, and even employment history. And when all your LERs are combined, it can help you identify training opportunities, explore career paths, and even apply for jobs. Pilot programs for LERs, supported by the T3 Innovation Network, are already underway across the globe. Learn how you can join this movement.
Thank you for that. I think one of the things that we truly believe is that this has an opportunity to transform how we actually think about humans, and that it's not about human capital management, it's really about human potential management, that we really help individuals become their better selves and contribute fully to not only to their advancement, but also the advancement of our workforce, our economy, our society as a whole. So we have an opportunity now to look at these 3 pilot projects, and Ginny, without further ado, let's have you introduce that, which we've been doing with IBM.
Okay, so my pleasure and thank you. I mean, I'm so optimistic about what we've accomplished so far in this council and what is still in front of us to do. So my hat's off really to Secretary Ross and to you, Ivanka, as well. So let me start with our pilot, and our is a number of us. So this is not only IBM, it is Scott and Western Governors University, something called the National Student Clearinghouse, a company called IQ4, and Central New Mexico Community College. So this is a pilot that used a blockchain network called the Learning Credential Network. So the Learning Credential Network. So think of it as a network as I said, powered by blockchain, and the goal is to prove that you could take information from a prospective employee, a human, as Scott just said, an employer, or someone who's helping create the skill, an educator, and they can share information together, feel very safe about it. I can determine how much they see, don't see, and that this can be done in a way with provenance, that I know it's not tampered with either, that it's accurate. So we chose to pilot cybersecurity skills for a couple good reasons. A, there is huge demand out there to this date. B, they're actually hard to document their skills and they're difficult to compare. But C, there are a set of standards out there, so we could map to them. So we picked cyber, and what you'll see here, and I think what we have actually the opportunity that we will prove with blockchain is that we can connect many organizations without a lot of additional work, because this is a network, so everybody doesn't have to redo everything. We can federate them together. That means time. It's a skills-first approach, because I can see what the skills are, and that we can get people, I think, who've been hardest hit by jobs back to work quickly. So we've got some big scale here to show, and I have a little video to start, and then I'm going to introduce Alex to walk you through the pilot. So our little quick video. I appreciate the runner-up video.
Across the landscape, demand for skilled labor has never been higher. And while there are great jobs waiting for great candidates, something is missing: a better way to match people, skills, and jobs. Employers are equally interested in actual skills and degrees, but identifying skills based on resumes is hard. We all want to help learners and job seekers manage their careers, but inconsistent and siloed data about skills, certificates, and credentials makes this difficult. Many job seekers, especially those switching careers, need to document skills acquired from training, like online courses or coding camps, and they need a simpler way to find out what new skills they need and where to get them. To answer the call, IBM and its partners have developed a reliable, secure approach for all stakeholders. It's called the Learning Credential Network, and it helps learners, job seekers, educators, and employers equally, so everyone can work together to get the right people in the right jobs. Here's how it works. Digital wallets provide a permanent, verifiable record of the learner's skills. The wallet owner manages their own credentials through blockchain technologies that assure the privacy of their data. This gives educators, learners, and employers a trusted way to share skills and credentials. Institutions can build learning pathways to help learners identify skill gaps and determine appropriate training. Job applicants can choose to anonymously share their skills profiles with potential employers. And employers can search for job candidates based on skills to find applicants who best match their requirements. Built on the guiding principles of openness, sharing, and interoperability, the Learning Credential Network is managed by its community of users. In this way, the Learning Credential Network provides an efficient and trusted way for employers, learners, and educators to work together and quickly train and place the right people in the right jobs. We invite you to join the Learning Credential Network and help match great people with great careers.
So let me introduce Alex Kaplan, not to be confused with Mark's going to introduce Adam Kaplan. They're not brothers. They're just very closely named. But Alex is from our consulting team that does transformation, and he is our global thought leader on how to apply these advanced technologies to build a workforce. So he has been working away on this pilot. Alex, over to you to show it to everyone.
Great. Thank you, Ginny, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here. Our work in this area began in 2018 when IBM began to look at how advanced technology could support the transition to a skills-based economy and new-collar jobs. So what I'm going to describe for you today is the IBM Security LER pilot, and we're going to talk about the learner's journey from high school to a best fit job in cybersecurity. If we can go to the next slide. IBM and its partners focused on three primary objectives throughout this pilot. In the work that we've done with the National Student Clearinghouse, Western Governors University, Central New Mexico Community College, and IQ4, we've been able to show a provable approach to learning and employment records at scale as an infrastructure. So the three objectives we focused on were, first, creating a trusted and verified record of academic and skills achievement. This record is stored on the blockchain to assure that it's secure, accurate, and tamper-proof. Second, we created a wallet for learners to safely store and control their lifelong record of achievement, thus providing the student with a single place to bring together all their credential skills-based work from their cradle to career journey. And third, we created a compassing application that, using industry-aligned career pathways, provides career guidance based upon a student's specific skills, thus allowing each individual to have a high degree of specificity about what they need to do for their own career path. And they can also use those same skills to identify paths for people to build skills they need through classes or work. Next slide. So let's take a look at what we've built to make this easier for everyone. The challenge for an individual is identifying the specific skills gap they have from their previous work or education to get the career that they want. Or perhaps they would like to, or they need to switch their own careers. So what we want to be able to do is provide them guidance on analogous careers that they can use many of the same skills that they've already accumulated over the course of their journey. The compassing tool that we've built is a solution that makes that possible by aligning skills with career pathways and educational opportunities to build those skills. Employers face the mirror problem, which is finding the right people with the right mix of skills for their open jobs. To do that, they need access to verifiable information about a person's skills, so they can first identify possible candidates based on trusted skills, and then they can reach out to them to see if they're interested in talking further. The employer search part of our solution makes that possible in a secure and private manner. Next slide. Since all credentials are on the blockchain, both the learner and the employer know that the skills-based information is tamper-proof, trusted, and verifiable. In addition, it allows everyone to see the provenance of the credential and information about what skills were earned as part of receiving that credential. As a result of having this information, consequential decisions about hiring, promotion, admissions, etc., can be more quickly and confidently made about any particular individual. As we move towards a skills-based talent marketplace, where important decisions are made about a person's career using their skills data, control and privacy of that data is critical. Our solution puts the learner at the center of control. They alone have the rights to determine whom they share their information with and what specific information they elect to share. In this way, we're both empowering the learner with accurate skills-based information about themselves and giving them control over how it is used. Next slide. So finally, the cyber pilot successfully demonstrated a replicable model for a national LER infrastructure. When we set out to do this pilot, our hypothesis was that using existing technologies, we could prove that an LER-type solution was viable and replicable across all industries. As Ginny mentioned, we chose cybersecurity careers because it was a terrific use case to prove out that hypothesis. All the core elements were in place. The NICE framework from the National Institute of Standards for Cybersecurity Careers, college courses from Western Governors University and Central New Mexico Community College that were aligned to that framework, and a large and growing demand for people with these skills. This was not an easy task for our team. We ran into many challenges along the way around standards, technologies, data, vision, and so on. But thanks to an amazing team that crossed all of our organizations, that brought the best minds in the country around policy, around student needs, about institutional requirements, we were able to overcome those challenges, and we proved our hypothesis that a national infrastructure for LERs could be built and that it would provide real value in connecting workers with jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Ginny, and the wonderful team working on this project. I think we can already all start to see the connection between this learning and employment record and the technology infrastructure, and it's connected also to skills-based hiring and the nice synthesis that's going to exist there. And clearly, cybersecurity is a domain that is critical not only for our respective industries, but for our nation as well. Next, I want to turn to Mark Benioff at Salesforce to discuss or introduce the pilot project that was designed to streamline job searching and upskilling in nursing, which is clearly an effort that was made both more challenging but also more important by the current pandemic. So Mark, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted, absolutely delighted to be here. And hello, everyone, and thank you. And thank you, Ivanka, and thank you, Secretary Ross, for your kind comments and for your leadership, for bringing the American Workforce Advisory Board together again. It's great to be with everyone. And also, thank you, Governor Holcomb. Salesforce is proud to be the largest software company in the great state of Indiana, and also your fastest growing software company in Indiana. And we are absolutely proud to have joined all of you today and also last year in this pledge to America's worker. In fact, in Indianapolis, we pledged to help more than 1 million Americans develop the skills they need to earn Salesforce credentials for top jobs in our ecosystem over the next 5 years. That was a great moment. And Ivanka, thank you for joining us in Indiana and Indianapolis for that great announcement. And it was also a pleasure to join you, Ivanka, in Davos earlier this year as part of the World Economic Forum's Reskilling Revolution, bringing better jobs, education, and skills for 1 billion people, and also to share our best practices with so many other countries and to learn and hear what they're doing, and also to see our work as a true leader in the whole world in this critical area of workforce development. So thank you so much, Ivanka, for coming to Switzerland for that critical announcement. These are critical times for our country and for our world. We all know that. And even as we confront today's challenges, we're still incredibly optimistic about the future. Now at Salesforce, we have 54,000 employees, but we're growing fast. In fact, we're the fastest top 5 software company in the world. Today, we just delivered our last quarter at $5.15 billion, growing at 29%, which just followed a 30% growth quarter. And because of that, over the next 6 months, we're going to add another 4,000 jobs. And over the next 12 months, we're going to add another 12,000 jobs. Many of these will be in the U.S. Many of them will be in the great state of Indiana, Governor Holcomb. And I'll tell you that by 2024, the Salesforce ecosystem is going to create more than 4.2 million new jobs, because Salesforce isn't just a company or an app, it's a platform and an ecosystem, and it will create more than 4.2 million new jobs across the economy and more than $1 trillion in new business GDP. It's been amazing to see how our platform and our ecosystem is creating all this amazing new wealth and value and jobs across the world. It's part of our commitment during this amazing fourth industrial revolution to make sure that we bring everyone along with the education and skills to succeed. It also reflects the fact that this is a time for everyone to develop new skills, to reskill, to really embrace reskilling, to develop a beginner's mind. We all know that with a beginner's mind, every possibility exists, but with an expert's mind, few do. And that is what we've especially seen with these incredible frontline hero healthcare professionals this year, the focus of our pilot. I mean, we have seen true heroes in our country. We have seen great people doing great things. These are our frontline healthcare workers. Our hearts have been with them, but to see their work and to see what they've done has been absolutely incredible. And this commitment to training these workers is the same spirit that is inspiring millions of people to go to our own trailhead.com, which is our own online learning and reskilling program. And it's open to everyone. And we have trained now millions of people for free on trailhead.com. In fact, in many cases, many of these nurses and healthcare workers have been able to get key skills, including contact tracing, which has been so important in the last 6 months. We've trained so many contact tracers throughout the United States who've been battling down this horrible virus. And I'll tell you, they've gotten trained on Trailhead, and they are doing a great job for our country. So thank you to all of them. It's also part of our commitment to what we call stakeholder capitalism, serving all of our stakeholders, including our communities and our workers, that they can thrive so greatly. And that's why I believe so strongly that business is the greatest platform for change. we can see a company like Salesforce who is able to come and help during these incredible times, whether it is supporting contact tracers and contact tracing, reskilling, building new skills, whatever we can do as a company to create value right now. And that commitment to workers and innovation is why we're so excited to be here today. Now I am pleased to share with you this great work in this incredible pilot project with my great partner, Dignity Health Global Education, an incredible company to help nurses upskill and thrive in their careers. And I have a tremendous executive here with me who is going to show you just something fantastic. And Adam Kaplan. Adam, are you there?
Yes, thanks so much, Mark. It's a real pleasure to join everyone here today and exciting to see the progress across all the pilots, what IBM is doing, what Walmart is doing, what we're doing, and really showcase our work. So we can go ahead and show the slide if that's okay. And then we'll show the video in a second. If we can start with the slide, that would be amazing. This is really what we're pulling it up. This is all about empowering the individual. So it's about the learner to learn anywhere and from multiple sources, and the need for interoperability. We're doing it for the tech industry, as Mark mentioned, and we're excited to see how this can help our customers in every industry, including healthcare. What you'll see in the video we'll play shortly is the power of this LER technology and open standards to upskill, reskill, and enable nurses to take more control over their career paths and their growth. If you look at this slide, you'll see the powerful network created when we link educators or issuers of credentials. This could be a university or a company providing learning on the left here, to an employee or nurse in the middle, and then enabling that learner to share their resume or credentials with their prospective employer in a trusted fashion. All the data is verified and privacy protected. Understanding what skills an individual has or is seeking to gain is powerful, as we can bring them on learning journeys and help them quickly find relevant education and career opportunities. We can also greatly reduce the cost and time for employers to hire. So it's a win for everyone and brings efficiency to the entire network you see here. With our partner Badger and following LER and Open Badge standards, we were able to create credentials that are easily shareable and independently verifiable. With DHGE, Dignity Health Global Education, like Mark mentioned, we reimagined what a nurse's educational and job search experience could look like. And with the great help of Western Governors University, WGU University College, we were able to distill the real-world value that learner and employment records can create for nurses. Also want to thank Robots and Pencils, our great consulting partner throughout this initiative. So with that, let's jump into the video now. If you don't mind, let's roll that. Thank you so much.
I'm Pepper Card, and I'm a nurse with 20 years experience. Like many American workers, nurses are in great demand, but finding jobs and building our careers is now more challenging than ever. Traditional job websites are designed for typical corporate jobs and don't highlight our skills and certifications easily beyond our degree. Gathering transcripts, medical certifications, and work history is repetitive and takes a lot of time, which as a nurse, I don't have. Healthcare needs to embrace technology. We need to make it easier for all of us.
Welcome to Ultra, a learning and hiring solution powered by Salesforce Customer 360 and Trailhead. Meet Claire, a registered nurse who's hoping to advance her career. Ultra keeps all her information in one place, helping her to learn new skills, earn verified credentials, and connect to job opportunities. While browsing, Claire learns she needs a more advanced degree to compete for management roles. She applies to an online program at Mercy College to learn relevant skills on her own time. Once completed, she adds her new degree and credential to her profile. Ultra now recommends jobs that match her new skills, and recruiters proactively seek her for new roles. With all her information in one place, applying is easy, and Claire can control her data and what to send. With verified and trusted credentials, she quickly advances through video interviews and gets the job. With Ultra, nurses and jobs are matched in minutes instead of months. Hospital recruiters have access to a qualified candidate pipeline, spend less time on verification, and can get new hires on the front lines where they're urgently needed. As her career grows, the learning doesn't stop. Ultra recommends more advanced education opportunities. Powered by interoperable standards, Claire's degree is instantly recognized. Ultra is a springboard for nurses, empowering them to learn new skills, earn trusted credentials, and connect to opportunity, while enabling hospitals to efficiently recruit the best talent, saving millions. Ultra has the potential to transform the nursing profession and set an example for the future of the American healthcare workforce.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We just wanted to end with a thank you. It's really been fantastic working with the White House and everyone involved across the pilots. And yeah, passing it back over to the room and looking forward to seeing what Walmart has built. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mark and Adam. It's been a pleasure to partner with you as well, especially with WGU being the largest nursing college in the country. This is a much-needed space for innovation. So lastly, we'll turn the time to Doug McMillan at Walmart, where they've made pretty sophisticated investments in developing the talent pipeline over the years and positioning Walmart to both embrace and lead on the LAR technologies. So Doug, we'll turn the time to you.
Thanks, Scott, and hi, everybody. Our project is a collaboration with Workday, LinkedIn, IBM, and WGU, and it'll enable a new level of information sharing for individuals, companies, and institutions, providing employers with new efficiencies and giving individuals access to their learning records, providing them with more control over their careers. What we've done is taken 3 retail roles, 2 of them at the front of the store, one of them being a supervisor role, and an online grocery role, mapped those skills needed and worked with the tech team to build a product that we're going to show you today. Importantly, we really appreciate the ongoing efforts from everyone, many of you in the room, to help as it relates to long-term governance of the standards and skills ontologies. This is a crucial enabler for the long-term viability of these projects. And personally, I just really think that's important because we've got to achieve scale and some sort of universal application here. So thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to Andy Trainer, and Andy's got one of the coolest titles in Walmart. He's the VP of Learning, which sounds really nice, and he's going to walk through the demonstration. Andy, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. This demo will walk us through the front-end team associate journey. It was the learner in this scenario utilizing the Academy app, which is the mobile accessible learning platform for Walmart. If we could start that video, please. Oh, already started it. Cool. The profile page shows all awarded in-progress badges, along with links to the badge library where the associate can select what they want to learn. Each badge represents a competency that has multiple micro-learnings mapped to it. The badge detail page shows the competency definition, micro-learnings, and the associate's progress on the content. The system tracks when associates complete content so the associate can see their current status and can pick up from where they left off. In this scenario, the associate needs to complete one more micro-learning to satisfy the learning portion of the badge. The micro-learnings are designed to be mobile-friendly, quick, and targeted to the associate for on-the-floor learning. Knowledge check questions are provided at the end of each lesson. When the associate passes the knowledge check, the system records learning completion.
Andy, I'm sorry, it's Ivanka here. Would you mind just speaking up a little bit?
Absolutely. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Is this better?
A little bit.
Is this better? Sorry. So I'll talk louder. So let's see. So knowledge checks questions are provided at the end of each lesson. When the associate passes the knowledge check, the system records the completion. Since this is the last knowledge check, the associate receives a congratulatory message and next steps for completion. The system will send a notification to the associate supervisor that the associate is ready for skill validation. Now we switch to the team lead, who is the associate supervisor and the assessor for the skill validation portion of the badging process. The My Team page acts as a reporting page for the team lead, shows the team associates, their learning progress, and any badges already attained. Skill validation notification appears at the top of the page to let the TL know they have skill validation to complete. Supervisors are prompted by a checklist to validate which skills an associate has demonstrated while on the job. Checklist items comprise of business-critical skills that are expected for the associate's role and normal job duties. Once the team associate has filled all the requirements, the TL can award the competency badge. Now we'll revisit the team associate's view to see what they can do with the newly awarded badge. Once the team lead completes the review, the associate will receive a notification that they have earned a badge. Once the badge will appear in an awarded section with a new icon above it. In the background, the system maintains metadata of all the skills required to earn the badge. This information is vital to our ability to share credentials. The badge information and metadata from the Badger platform conforms to Open 2.0 framework and Open Skills Stack Alliance guidance to ensure that it's machine readable and interoperable with external parties. From here, an associate can share their badges to platforms like Way2 or Workplace. On the Way2 platform, the associate can accept the badges they earned and display them in a digital badge wallet. The new badge will show as a pending credential that the associate can accept in order to display. All the supporting competency definitions and skill descriptions are transferred to the digital wallet. On this platform, associates can also import credentials from other connected platforms such as WGU. Once the badge is accepted, it will show up on the recently added page with all associate credentials appearing here. From this page, the associate has the option to share the badge or contact the issuer of the badge. From here, the associate can securely share badges to public platforms to showcase their skills. In this case, an associate chooses to share their new badge in their LinkedIn profile. The LinkedIn button opens the LinkedIn app and a box automatically appears. Using the data from the Way2 badge platform, the system populates the badge data to appear as a certification on their LinkedIn profile page. Once saved, the badge will now appear on the profile under Licenses and Certifications. Anyone viewing the associate profile can now access and review the details of this badge. As we mentioned earlier, we're currently testing this in active stores today with plans to expand to all stores by the end of Q1 this coming year. We appreciate the partnership with LinkedIn, IBM, Workday, and WGU, along with the support of the White House during this pilot, and we are excited about the opportunities this will provide for our customers. Thank you.
Ivanka, you may have earned a badge when you visited the store in Texas and put on those VR. We'll have to check.
With the VR Thanksgiving holiday shopping simulation. Your team makes it look much easier than it actually is.
Scott, that's all we have.
Thank you so much, Doug and Andy, and thank you everyone for presenting these pilots. I think all of you can see very quickly how what was just a concept about a year ago has now, through the collective effort of these pilots, combined with a series of pilots also led by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, has turned those concepts now into a solution that can be demonstrated and replicated. And so each pilot was truly organized around the needs of individuals who we know are both workers and learners, as well as designed to try to address the cost, time, and complexity that employers have in finding great talent. And so it truly is, I think, a platform by which we can catalyze growth. And so the potential of the LER to reduce labor market frictions and expand investments in human potential is immense. These pilots were also notably deployed utilizing open or common frameworks for achievements and skills, so that also allows the ability to scale this up on a national level. And so now the task really ahead is to organize ourselves and to drive widespread adoption of LER technology. And so doing so will truly create value for every American and power American competitiveness. I think as a matter of business, we also want to turn some time and attention now to the Learning Employment Records white paper about progress and the path forward. But before I do that, just really quickly, I want to amplify Governor Holcomb's comments and reflect this board's work to close the digital divide. In our call to action earlier this year, we unanimously recommended the undertaking of this unprecedented investment in digital infrastructure, and it's just incredible to see already the advancements happening here. But we should not forget that 1 in 5 American school children are without reliable access to high-speed internet. And that online access has long moved from a privilege or a convenience to now a necessity of life and livelihood. And so we just can't allow these individuals to be left behind. So the Digital Infrastructure Working Group has produced the white paper. You have that in front of you here in the room, or it was shared with you digitally. And the next steps on the path toward realizing the LER vision are laid out in that white paper. And so while it's been theoretically feasible for some time, it's only now with the institutional will and this collaboration that we're able to bring such a system to life. And so the board's work has changed that and created a center of gravity, if you will, that's attracted and unified innovators across the workforce and major employers, academic institutions, technology, sector associations, and government. And so that coordinated effort, spearheaded here by the White House and by Ivanka and Secretary Ross, is truly unprecedented, and it's enabled these massive strides now towards realizing the potential of LER technology. And so I will just, before we get to a voice vote, I'm just going to give some quick overview of the recommendations in this, and I'll do that very briefly, and then allow for some questions as time allows before we move to a voice vote. So the first recommendation, and is arguably the guiding principle for each of the following recommendations, is that given the need for rapid fluid iteration and innovation to bring systems of LERs into existence, the governance of LER should be a collaborative effort driven by all stakeholders, not controlled by government. And there are examples of this already with things like the Learner Credential Network that was emphasized. We also have the T3 Innovation Network in U.S. Chamber, but also the recently announced Open Skills Network last week, which is a coordinated effort of over 40 employer, academic, technology, and government and nonprofit organizations. Second, it is critical that we drive adoption of LERs. Federal and state governments can take a range of approaches to advance this goal, including establishing collaboratives with key stakeholders, provide available resources to advance skills-related work within their jurisdictions, conducting regional needs analyses, and continue to drive additional pilot projects and disseminating key information. Third recommendation is we must catalyze core infrastructure investments for LERs. Governments have a role to play in catalyzing private sector activity. Small grant programs can spur significant private sector innovation and investment, and as we've seen in the case of recent grants by the Department of Education. All levels of government should explore how they can deploy funding to stimulate private sector funding and partnership. Fourth, governments have a role to play in coordinating stakeholders in the LER ecosystem, such as the White House has done to date. The National Council for the American Worker should continue to play a role in advancing collaboration. Fifth, governments and private sector employers should adopt skills-based hiring practices, the reference I had before around the connection between the LER and the skills-based practices. And this was catalyzed by the White House executive order in June, is already being extended and implemented, which is wonderful, as Governor Holcomb has done in Indiana, and members of this board have the opportunity to model best practices and influence broader adoption of a skills-based approach. And last, we should modernize regulations wherever possible to accommodate and encourage the adoption of LER systems. This includes regulatory changes around data usage and exchange, as well as specific processes such as student loan applications, unemployment insurance claim processing, and guiding unemployment beneficiaries to training programs such as is happening in Indiana. So those are the recommendations, but before a voice vote, I think we could offer a little time if there are any questions or comments.
As evidenced by that, I think it's fair to say that everyone's been doing a lot of work while not in this room or at this table. So we appreciate the Herculean lift on this front. And Scott, really amazing. It's rare that a body such as this produces so much tangible work. We're about to hear from Tim on the brand campaign, which is another example of great tangible output, but really great job. So Scott, if you want to oversee the vote.
Yep, so with that, why don't we go ahead and call for a voice vote on the recommendations incorporated to the paper, into the white paper. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seems like it's unanimous. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, thank you again, Scott, and thank you to Ginny, to Mark, Doug, and Adam for your great work and for your excellent presentations today. I'd now like to hand it over to Tim Cook, who will provide an update on Apple and IBM's leadership on the Find Something New brand campaign. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Ivanka, and thanks to you and Secretary Ross for your leadership in our shared work to empower people through education and to help them discover great opportunities. This work is particularly urgent in light of the continuing pandemic. Our focus on opportunity, equality, and racial justice, and now the natural disasters taking their toll here in the West and across the rest of the country. Victims of the latest wildfires and hurricanes remain in our thoughts and prayers, and they need and deserve our support in terms of immediate.
Who are Black or African American. We're going to work with them through college. So we have an ongoing relationship with them. And if they do their part, they'll have a guaranteed job at Visa when they graduate. We've also made some real commitments, which I know a number of my colleagues have as well, in terms of extending inclusion and diversity. And so we've made a commitment that within 3 years, we'll increase the number of underrepresented vice presidents and above in Visa in the United States by 50%. And in 5 years, we'll increase the number of underrepresented employees in total in the United States by 50%. You know, net, this pandemic has caused massive disruption and will also drive a good deal of permanent change. And I think the board must recognize this change in our planning. We have to focus our efforts on how the next new norm will frame the future of work. With that, let me turn it over to my working group co-chair, Johnny Taylor, who shares some insights from his work. So Johnny, over to you.
Thank you, Al. And thank you all for giving us the opportunity to kind of wrap this up. You know, it's interesting. I've heard Barbara talk about the new normal, and people use the that normal a lot. Julie, you know, in HR, we do that a lot, right? But we're seeing, as Alice pointed out, more of a next normal, because you'd be surprised how much of this stuff is not new. Employers were allowing people flexibility, good employers. I know IBM had been doing it for a while to work remotely when it worked. And in those circumstances where it was necessary for the people coming to the office, they would try to do it in such a way where we reached more workplace integration as opposed to balance, because life is never balanced, right? But the notion is something, we're there. We just think this is going to be the next evolution of work. At the Society for Human Resource Management, you know, we have researchers, PhDs, psychologists, statisticians, IO psychologists, and they do nothing but determine what the future of work is going to look like. And what we know is that for sure, the pandemic has transformed workers, and the workplace at once. And a lot of the things that we thought didn't or couldn't necessarily work now, because that's the way we were forced to do it. At first, the transformations, if we can all think back, I can't believe it's just been 6 months ago, but Friday, March 13th, that day that I think we'll all remember in 2020, when essentially the country had to shut down, and in fact, the world was shutting down. We had reactions. Of course, we shut down. We were busy trying to figure out how to get people to, Wi-Fi, laptops, all those things so that they can access the technology so that they continue to work. And then we moved into phase 2, which was making sure that we weren't losing something special, employee morale, employee culture, which is, we worked so hard. I remembered a number of the CEOs in this group speaking out about the importance of culture, where you lose something when the workplace changes, how work is performed. This board and SHRM has begun to examine these changes, and we want to make sure that we don't jump out and make rash decisions. What we observed from March through June is very different from what we're observing right now in the workplace. So this is very fluid, and we want to be careful. Thus, we are asking our researchers to follow this. What's really nice is we have a pretty good concrete beginning, March, and we're going to follow this longitudinally and figure out how much of this is actually changing in the workplace permanently or is in response to a temporary crisis. Key areas, though, that we've already identified as we think about going into this next normal include flexibility and agility. And we've been talking about that a while. In the past, work from home was either a perk or, sort of an accommodation. Those are the two reasons that you kind of did it as a general practice. And now many of us are questioning, do these jobs need to be performed? That particular job, not an entire organization. I was smiling when Julie pointed out that a significant number of their workforce are back in the workplace. And so jumping to some conclusion, one CEO says, I'm going to let my people work remotely. Another says, I'm not, I want people back. There's no value in remote work. Neither of those extremes are good. right? You have to figure out what's uniquely right for your culture, what you're trying to achieve, and our research is telling us you'll attract a certain type of person. There'll be people who want to work remotely, and there'll be people who don't want to work remotely. And we actually are learning that, despite conventional wisdom that people are more productive, our research tells us that in the beginning, people were more productive. Think about it, because the entire country was shut down. You had nothing else to do. The reality now is you might be at home, but now that the malls are open and the parks are open and places are open, we're seeing productivity go down in certain areas, and certain people need to be at work. Those are the sorts of issues that we're observing. 1 in 4 organizations have said they're going to definitely or probably will allow people to continue to work remotely. But is that 5 days a week, or is that 3 days a week? Is it certain classes of employees or categories of employees? These are the questions that we have to figure out, and we have to ensure that long term that doesn't create two cultures. The culture of people who are in the office and the people who aren't. And when you're looking for making decisions about promotions, out of sight, out of mind. And so might it be that you send a significant class of people, you allow them to work from home, and then they never are promoted. And long term, that creates a whole nother dynamic within your organization. To that point, turning to the question of, or the topic of inclusion, equity, and diversity. Let's face it, and for years we focused on diversity, diversity, diversity. And if you look at the numbers, the reality is America is going to become more diverse. It's done it already. If you look at the number of public school children, it's a majority minority population. So guess what? Diversity is coming one way or the other. What we do know is we're not convinced inclusion is going to come. And so that has become a very big focus of SHRM and our working group is diversity, yes, but inclusion is really hard. In fact, it's made harder because of diversity. And so as employers and workers come together to support a full national recovery, the promotion of greater inclusion, equity, and diversity must remain an imperative focus of workforce development. Some businesses have found it easier to access and hire more diverse talent in a remote environment. You don't have to be within 50-mile radius of Washington, D.C. to hire people. You can hire them from wherever they are. That's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and we should take advantage of that. The board has already begun to examine how businesses of all sizes can utilize IE or D&I, or there's a ton of talking about alphabet soup. There are tons of them. I heard the A for access the other day, for example. But we're going to build and strengthen the pool of work-eligible Americans post-pandemic. We have to ensure that some of what's happening in America's public school systems, which we're going to have to deal with, and we were talking about this before the meeting, Barbara and Sebastian and I, and we were saying, you've got a population of American children who are now studying at home since February, and many of them aren't studying. Several public school systems have reported that only half of the children even logged on since February. So there are some real issues when we think about wanting to include all Americans in the future America. If you miss a year or two of education, you won't be qualified to compete for many of these jobs. So diversity, we really have to be very conscious of making sure that everyone is participating. Finally, and in response to this, SHRM created a big campaign called Together Forward at Work, and I like the forward, not looking backwards, but forward together. And our members asked us to identify what could we do as a Society of Human Resources professionals to make sure that we were fishing in the right pools, that we were getting different ponds, making sure that we looked in the right places to ensure we tapped into diverse individuals, and then making sure that when we got there, they were treated fairly and respectfully, and then given an equal opportunity, paid equitably, and given the opportunity to succeed. That's what we're all about in this work, and we look forward to continuing the work, and thank you as a group for allowing us to do this. Thank you, Al.
Thank you so much, Johnny, and thank you for shining the light on these issues and also for asking some very relevant questions and proposing with the working group some very practical solutions as we think about all of these areas, particularly, as you noted, inclusion. Lastly, and wanting to keep on schedule, I'd like to recognize the member Jay Box, who's been on this council since the very beginning with Kentucky Community and Technical College System for brief remarks. Jay is retiring from the school that he is at and from the council as well. And Jay, we appreciate your hard work and thank you for your incredible contribution here and elsewhere, and good luck on your retirement. So if you'd like to say a couple of words, Jay, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, this is my last meeting of the advisory board. But before I go, I would like to thank the President, Secretary Ross, and of course, Special Advisor Ivanka Trump for not only having me on the board, but also for all the good work this group has done these past 2 years. We haven't just talked about problems facing our nation's workforce. We have created avenues to solve those problems. I'm especially proud of the Multiple Pathways campaign that we created together. I believe that this campaign has the potential to make a real difference in lives across the country. And today's presentations on the LER reinforces the importance of our partnerships between education and business and industry to truly advance our American workforce. Also, I want to give a special shout out to the other higher education leaders on this board. I applaud the great work you have done during this pandemic in becoming more innovative in your course delivery and your virtual support for students. This month, I am retiring as the president of the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. And in looking back on my tenure at KCTCS, especially in the last few years, it has been remarkable to see what we have done in Kentucky be mirrored by this board. I hope I was able to lend my experience in these initiatives to the group. It has been an honor to work with the members of this board and the staff. I wish you all continued success, and I stand ready to help in any way you need it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jay. And again, good luck on your retirement. Really, you've been an amazing, amazing asset to all of us in this work and of course, to the state of Kentucky. So we all wish you well. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much for being here today and everyone who dialed in remotely. Thank you.